When you're going to build a tiny house, you're going to need some tools. And you can do it really basic. And just get like a handsaw and a hammer and various tools like that. But unless you're really young and really strong, a handsaw is going to be a heck of a lot of work. And it's a lot faster if you get yourself some power tools. Like I've got a simple miter saw here, and that's going to help me with cutting angles and stuff. I also have a circular saw. I picked up a table saw, a Craftsman contractor's table saw, and some other tools. I basically set my budget at $1,000 for tools. And since I started with nothing, I sold everything to buy a sailboat and then came back to try and build a tiny house. And so if you're someone who doesn't have a screwdriver to your name, then this is going to be an accurate video for you, because you're going to be buying everything that I'm buying. Today we're going to build some sawhorses, because I need some sawhorses to put my tools on and to work off of and to build things on. I do have this little folding table, but it doesn't belong to me, and so I really don't want to hurt it or damage it. And so I'm going to build my sawhorses. And to build a pair of sawhorses, I need to have 5 2x4s. And with 5 2x4s, I'll be able to build 2 sawhorses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out 4 legs, the 30 inches each, and then I'm going to cut out the top boards, which are 32 inches each. And there'll be 3 of those for each sawhorse. Now, if you're like me and you purchased your wood from one of the big box stores, you may have to carefully select which end of the wood you're going to cut off, which end of the wood you're going to save, because sometimes the wood that you pick up at the big box store is less than pristine. This thing you see me operating with here is a speed square, and it works really good for measuring straight lines. So let's do this one as 30. This is the 30. This is the 30. Now when you go to buy your 2x4s, make sure and buy 8-foot long 2x4s. When you go to the big box store, you may find that they have 8-foot 2x4s, and they also have what are called studs. And studs are used for framing houses, and they're a little shorter than an 8-foot 2x4. And that's because you have a bottom plate and a top plate and a sill plate on top, and so they cut it off so that it's shorter than 8 feet. You see that I'm marking all of these 2x4s before I start cutting. And that's just because it's easier to do all of one job and then do all of another job. So this particular one has a bunged up area down here, so I'm going to measure from the other end. Heard a lot of noise going on there. Part of the noise was the skill saw. The other part of the noise was my generator. See, I've got a Champion generator. It's a dual fuel, which means it will use both propane and gasoline. It's a 3600 watt generator with a 4500 surge capacity. So when you do something like a table saw or something, you first turn it on, it's going to draw more current when you first turn it on. That's called a surge. And we'll go over this generator in more detail in a future video. But if you're going to build a tiny house off grid, you're going to need a generator. Okay, so we got our boards cut, and here on top are the 32-inch boards. And we're going to make kind of an I-beam type affair like this. And then I'm using an impact driver. And for these particular ones, I'm going to use 3-inch screws. Now usually you would pre-drill, but in this case I'm staying pretty far away from the end of the boards. And it's probably advisable to go and measure the center line of these boards, but I can estimate that pretty well. This is not fine carpentry. We're not building furniture here. So this is going to form the top of our sawhorse, and the legs will come out from here. Now I've got to make another one of these for the other sawhorse. Okay, so I'm just going to come over here and set this to 15 degrees. And it has a click stop for the 15 degrees. Okay, so I'm going to take a look where I want to cut the angle. Looks like the right place, and to make sure I cut every board the same way, I'm going to put a stop block in here. This is just a place that I can use to make sure that every board gets cut the same way. Now as I bring the boards up, I'll just stick them in here, bring them up, hit them up against this board, and cut them. Let me get the generator started, and we'll get this job done. Okay, so that's the angle for when the 2x4 is going down to the ground. Okay, in order to help myself, I'm just going to use the clamp here to hold it in one place. I'll use my speed square, make sure the leg is square to the I-beam, and then I'll just take and put a combination of 2.5 and 3-inch screws. Right here on the bottom portion, I'll put the 3s. And up here on the top portion, I'll put the 2.5s. Once you get it clamped, of course, you can take your clamp off. And we just turn around, rinse and repeat. Now remember, you've got this bevel on each one of the legs. Make sure you put that in the correct orientation, because otherwise it'll be a complete waste of time. Well, I measured that for square, it was way out. Now you could get real fancy and cut out some dados and whatnot, make this fit perfect. But the purpose here is to get a support. And so I'm kind of building it quick and easy. Again, we've got this bevel, so we'll put that down. There, that's the first sawhorse. I'll do the same thing again, make the second one. It's not the most beautiful thing in the world, but it only has to last as long as I'm building the tiny house. If you're building one for eternity, you may want to do a little bit more fine carpentry. But this only needs to last maybe a year or so. So let's get started on the other one. Probably the most important part of this entire build is squaring up the legs. Now, since I'm building out here in a cow pasture, the chance that I'm going to have very flat ground is not very high. But you want to start off with something that's at least approaching the right angles. I changed to using 3-inch screws all around. Originally I was using 2.5s down here because I didn't want to penetrate this bottom board, but it turns out it's not a problem. Okay, we've got a set of 2x4s, and those will work pretty good, but I think I'm going to put a little bit of extra strength. If I take something like that and cut it, that would really do a lot towards making this stronger. I'm just making this square with the bottom board of this I-beam. Doesn't have to be perfect. And since we're here, might as well mark the top where it's going to go. And then we'll cut it out. Well, that's our pair of Sawhorses that cost us about 20 bucks and maybe an hour to an hour and a half worth of time. I thank you so much for joining us. If you could, please give me that thumbs up icon or that old like-a-roo. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you might consider subscribing, because we've got a lot of videos coming as we build this tiny house. Thank you so much. See you next time on Moose Villa Off Grid.